Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Hello, Instagram. Hello, YouTube. If you're on Instagram, click the link, go to YouTube. It's a lot better. Uh, it's a lot better to view. So download the app. You can follow me there. All right. I'm going to be talking to this camera in front of me. All right. So just deal with it. Ask questions here. I'll come back. I'll check in. You can ask questions here on YouTube until I can connect my streaming software to Instagram, which has been a real pain in the ass. Finally, I'm that one emailing the company of like, what is going on? So what's up, Kel? What up, Ben? All right. So today is December 22nd, 2025, Monday Musings. I'm going to just start getting right into it because I record the video and then I post it on Instagram and I can't edit it. So then you see me blabbling and whatever. So if you're coming late to it, try to meet it on time. I try to put it up on Sunday or Monday morning and we'll go from there. But today we're going to chat about structure versus flexibility. So kind of like, is it yin and yang, meaning like dualism, ebb and flow of it, or all things are happening at once? Or is one better than the other? All right. And the quick answer is it really depends. And with that, welcome to Monday Musings with me, Justin Harris. I'm a coach, and I just say coach. I've coached beginner athletes to Olympians. I've coached speed and power to multi-day endurance races. So join me in talking about what's on my mind, what I see with my clients, what I see in the industry, what I'm seeing scrolling around Instagram or seeing on YouTube. And we will discuss these things that are on my mind in a soapbox. And if you have questions or comments about anything, put them up on Instagram, put them down here in YouTube or Facebook Live, and I will answer the questions at the end. But structure or versus flexibility. I was having this discussion today with a friend of mine who is a creative. I've been having discussions with multiple clients about just like when they train, and really multiple. And it's like kind of a conversation all the time. And it's something that I can be a little dogmatic on in a certain sense. Um, I can be structured with structure, and I can be flexible with structure, and I can be flexible with flexibility, and I can be structured with flexibility. So this is why it all depends. So when we talk structure, how I think of structure is creating a system or a way that we're going about doing something. So for instance, on the micro level of like what a week looks like. So a week of training, it's like, what do we do on each day? All right. Flexibility means, adjusting with the flow and, adjusting and being, I don't want to use the word, adjusting to the information that's coming in. So being structured is like, hey, regardless of the information coming in, this is where we're at. And flexibility is with the information coming in, we're going to make adjustments. Okay. Plain and simple. I think real world, we all know that everything operates somewhere in the gray area. Okay. Um, and it's one of the many concepts that I'm going to kind of cover today. I'm not going to give a real clear answer because it depends. I can give case studies and analogies and different things, and maybe I'll do it, maybe I not. But it's 8:00 at night. I've been up since 5:30. A little glass of wine here. Okay, nice little Chardonnay from Napa Valley. VGS, very good stuff. Thank you, Roger, for sending that gift. I appreciate you. I'm a big fan of wine, white wine particularly. But anyway, so structure versus flexibility. So I feel that there's a lot of different levels here, right? And so, we can go into like when I was coaching college and in person in high school, there was this sense of like my plan was structured. I had a vision of where I was going to go each 3 weeks, but then I would adjust the workout with the information that was coming in. So the athletes did a readiness questionnaire where they answered by lunchtime their overall energy level, their hours of sleep, their mood, their relaxation or stress level, and their muscle soreness. And that's like a validated and reliable test for Cooper McKinnon or Hooper McKinnon, one of those. Um, and it was like really useful for me to like kind of have the athletes check in with themselves and tell me how they were feeling. And then I would rank that. I'd basically take the Z score of that. So Z score is a standard deviation to what the current value is. And so it's like magnitude away from standard deviation. So if you rate 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 5, right, that's a big magnitude versus like 5, 3, 5, 3, 5, 3, 5, 3, 4, right? There's more variance there. And so the 4 is not as big as a difference from 3 to 5 if you're ranking 3 all the time. So I can do a little kind of win-loss kind of spark line of like all the metrics like really quickly. And then I weighted the metrics based on what I thought was more valuable, which I weighted sleep more heavily and overall energy compared to other things. Because certain times of the year, the student athletes would be a little bit more stressed and we could work through it. But if they were really low energy and didn't get a lot of sleep, I knew that was a recipe for disaster pretty quickly. So I would take that information and I would adjust on the fly in the session. And where I coached was a lot of type A athlete, people that had very full schedules. Just because they were kids or young adults doesn't mean it's very different than what I do now. So I would have this loose structure, and then I would basically see what was going on. And I had a vision in my head of what was happening with what I wanted to see out of the athletes. So if it was like velocity base or effort base, I had a vision of what I wanted to see. So if it was velocity base, and I wanted to see, at the time I was coaching sprinters, but I was also helping out with distance. We would want to see a certain velocity. And so was that 6 reps or 8 reps or 4 reps or 6 reps? It was kind of like it depended on the session, and I had a vision for what that looked like. Now I did times, I knew the times, roughly where they were at. And, I wanted a certain shapes that they were hitting, right? I wanted all these things. And so I would look at it, and if they got it at 4, we're done. And they'd be like, no, but you said like 4 to 6. And being the type A people that they are, it was like, I want to do 6. It's on the damn piece of paper. I'm going to do it. Okay, good. Coach yourself. Take the piece of paper. You don't need me. Huh? Whether they needed me or not, or whether you need me or not, that's debatable to some. So this idea, though, was that in like I could see the questionnaire, I could ask questions how you were feeling, I could see how they moved, I could see how they were. There was constant data streams coming in, and I can adjust on the fly. Now, coaching remotely is like this. It's like really has forced me to be like write better plans. And so there was less room for error because the athlete, right? My athletes are the assistant coach. They're the boots on the ground. So I'm trying to educate them. I'm trying to get them to be more autonomous, how to solve problems, right? And to me, that is a skill that I'm trying to develop when I'm in person or remotely, right? So, so in that essence, right, like there is still flexibility in the plan, and all my athletes are going to laugh a little bit, but it depends on the scenario. So if we're 16 weeks out from a marathon or any key A race or whatever it is, then we're gonna get into real structure. And that's when it's like, okay, now we're walking a tightrope. And as we get closer, we're getting, closer to landing this plane. And if something happens, we have less, room to like fix it and make it work. So I say it's somewhere between authoritarian regime and democracy. Like I need to hear what's going on, but I've done this enough times where I kind of know how people should respond. I say generally, because even in a structured plan, there needs to be some flexibility. So some people I'm like, hey, I use this heart rate test to basically be like, yeah, I think you're really fatigued, and that now this informal assessment says you are, and so we're going to back off for a couple days, 2-3 days, and then we'll be good, and that works. Some people can't handle that, right? That little bit of flexibility, right? But in a training plan, when we get like 12 to 16 weeks out, then it becomes a little bit more rigid, unless we're trying to release some pressure. When we're in between, A races, and whether it's a B race, C race, or nothing, and we're just training, then that's where I have much more flexibility. Like, hey, this is where We get to have fun. I tell my clients who come on and choose me as a coach to go into their first marathon or to change things up in the marathon. It's like, okay, like this is not how I am all the time, which goes to like, I was an educator. So like, you can't be the same teacher to every student if you're going to facilitate their success. We call this like the zone of proximal development, something Zygorski or something like that concept. And basically, like, like you need to have a wide aperture bandwidth, and then the student or, athlete or whoever is in the middle there. And so, like there's room for them to like be challenged up and there's room for them to drop down. Now, I think there's a bare minimum, if my athletes are not working out more than 3 days, less than at least 3 days a week, then there's not a lot of flexibility. It's like, hey, get 3 sessions in. All right. So until we get 3 sessions in, like there's not much for me to do. There is, because it depends. Right. But I try to say, like, let's get 3 sessions in if we're having a tough time, different things and whatever. Right. And it does happen even with my super, people who are training 6 days a week. So this concept of structure versus flexibility comes up, and it kind of, I think there's time and place. I think there is, I think you need both at all times. But how I see it is people are paying a coach to provide a result. In order to get an end result, whether that's a process-oriented result, an outcome-oriented result, or a performance-oriented result, so outcomes like place or I can finish it. Performance is like, I did well or I hit a certain time or something like that, right? And so it gets to be this, essentially, um, where was I going with this thought? Monday Musings. This happens at 8:00 at night. I forget. Anyway, structure versus flexibility. I wonder how you look at it in your own practice, whether it's your job, were you early in your job or late on your job? But the creative friend I was, having a conversation with, he's kind of at like a crux point of like, does he shift somewhere to like bring in some income or something like that in order to like fund some projects? Or does, the conversation I was kind of being, it's like, look, like creatives getting this stuck of like, I'm not really motivated or I'm really good at doing other people's work for them. But when it comes to me producing my stuff, it's a challenge. And I get this all the time. I can, you know, um, I can really relate with this as a coach. What are the higher priorities things? It's easy for me to like tell someone like, hey, like, I think this is what you should do in your business or whatever. But if I'm not walking the walk, it's quite difficult. But we, as creatives, we have this like imposter syndrome. We have at times, we want to do perfect work and really get this message or this product across. And I'm sure many of you have been there and then we don't ship the art. And like Seth Godin, someone who I have read a ton over the years, like a marketing, advertising, and kind of all around thought provocateur, some really interesting projects and stuff. But his big thing is like to ship your art. So like my art is like training plans, right? So my clients get my art, right? And that's like I'm architecting it. And so I have to show up and have structure of like that's like a deliverable that is non-negotiable. I have to get that done by a certain amount of time. I can get ahead of it by doing it sooner, or I, save it till the last day that I feel comfortable with it and what I've agreed upon with my athletes, and that would be Sundays. And so, I have this structure where it's like that is paramount, but there's other parts of my business, right? There's phone calls. Okay, phone calls. How are we discussing things, right? Every week, what most of my 90% of my clients, 95% of my clients, we talk every week. And then it becomes, okay, what else? This stuff, Monday Musings, my newsletter, which you should sign up for, where I go into a little bit more, this is more random and top of mind and live. The other stuff is, my newsletter, which I send out twice a month, essentially is a little bit deeper. So sign up for that, go to my Instagram bio, go to my website, and it's in the, it's there to sign up for the newsletter. So twice a month, 5-minute read or less about the art of training, really. We can talk science and all that stuff, which science is always behind what the coaches are doing, just to let you know. So if someone's spitting off science like 24/7 and this is all it's about, they're a little bit behind the curve. And how I was early in my career, I was trying to explain things and understand how to get performance, and therefore, you want to like prove it to people by sharing research. I love research, and it's good when you can, prove it. But coaches are in the trenches. Like real coaches are in the trenches, figuring things out, getting messy, rolling up their sleeves and figuring out whether we're trying to be structured and that's the right time, or it's right for the person right now, or if we're being more flexible. So, um, yeah, this is a conversation I have all the time. So some of my type A people are like so structured where I'm like, hey, let go a little bit, right? Like you don't have to do the session exactly as planned. Here's the quick ways that we can modify in session, right? Then some of my other clients who are a little too that don't require flexibility, because if you require flexibility, you should get it if you require it. But some of my clients who are being too flexible, because their jobs, especially my medical people who are like nurses, that their shifts change all the time, or they're surgeons or doctors where you're not in a primary care or whatever, it's more like in the hospital, it gets wild. So like we're constantly flexible and it becomes challenging, right? Your body never gets in a rhythm. So what is paramount to me, whether structure or flexibility, is like, can we get into a rhythm that allows our body to adapt and absorb the training that we're doing? All right. What's up, Callan? What's up, Katie Youngling? 3. So anyway, so with all that said is, think about structure and flexibility. A good coach, really anyone. I find if you're dogmatic in one area, I feel like, you're going to resonate the people that believe in that, and then you're going to ostracize the other people that don't. But I've prided myself in my career and in my business structure to really be able to coach anyone who comes in front of me, or make a positive, and coaching means to like make a positive impact in their lives. So this is not like a sales thing for me, but this is just something I've been thinking about for the past several months, about the structure or flexibility. So really at the end of the day, it depends. I would say start with being a little bit more structured and realize when you need to be flexible. So if you get sick, be flexible. If family or things pop up, be flexible. But if family or all these things are pushing in and they don't give you that opportunity to be consistent and feel good for yourself, it's almost like the oxygen mask, on the plane. First, put it on yourself, and a lot of us are putting it on other people first. And then we're sitting there sucking wind because we're not getting what we need. And then when we don't get what we need, we can't be our best versions of ourselves. Okay. So think about that when you're going on. So anyway, I'll answer some questions now, but structure and flexibility. All right. YouTube, Facebook. All right. You guys can message there. I'll pop on here. Any questions for people on any of the platforms that you're curious about? Or how is structure, flexibility operate in your life? Are you more structured, or you tend to be more flexible? I'm curious. I'm curious. This is one of the things as a teacher we've learned to wait and let people think questions. But yeah, I'm here to answer some questions. I wish you would tell me who was on. Oh yeah, Sam Runs and Callan. I see you guys are on. How's everyone doing? Did you guys grab a drink to join me? Hello. Maybe it's a little early for you out in California, San, but Callan is perfectly fine for you. All right. Well, no questions today. That's okay. Everyone's getting ready for the holidays. So I wish everyone a happy holidays. I know Hanukkah's been happening. Christmas is going away. Hi, still at work. Okay, that's all right. Um, uh, San does the team whoopers challenges that I've been running lately, and she always does a good job executing things. So Callan, all right, you touched on it a little bit, but how do you as a coach know when to push your athlete's structure and when to back off flexibility? All right. Yeah, this is like I did a poor job of explaining that today. But it's really like getting to know the person. So I ask a lot about this. Like just like getting to know people, right? And then what do they desire, right? So if someone says, "Hey, I'm craving more structure," or "Hey, I want to achieve this," or "Hey, I want to do X, Y, or Z," right? So I'm like taking in like my vision of what that is, and I explain and foreshadow like what the vision is. And then it's like, okay, here's the structure that's going to get us. But really, I'm pretty flexible early on. Like, I don't have hard tests, like maximal testing to like bury yourself like a FTP or a 20-minute run test or certain workout. Like, I'm trying to organically see what's going on because I want to kind of have the person do the training that they're used to. And then I start iterating down based on what I'm seeing. So, like, I'm not just stuffing my plan in because when you stuff your plan in, it's like, are people understanding what you're asking them to do? And so the execution is just poor because of understanding. Is it they don't agree with it, so then they're not bought into it? Or are you not picking the right thing, right? So it could be an execution error, it could be a targeting error, or it could be a choice error, right? These are kind of an action selection. I remember in like biorobotics, these were the three types of errors, right? So, Callan, I wasn't I wasn't chastising you for like not not listening, but part of the Monday musings is for me to work on being more clear and speaking with less additive words like and and so, which is very challenging, especially late at night for me. Um, so it's the simple answer is getting to know the person and what you feel like they need and listen to what they're saying. I will tell you this is like most of the time people are asking for things like when we're starting to they want to change. However, when we get to changing, people I call it the freak out zone, air quotes, freak out zone. In the freak out zone, it's like you can get people, they can be offended easily. They could be defensive. This is not therapy, but it's like people can like point fingers and blame me. You know, some people take extreme accountability and kind of to the self-deprecating point where that's not necessary. So, but when they go through this friction, because on this planet we have gravity, we have physics. You know, as someone said, a track coach said, like Sir Isaac Newton is the only undefeated track coach because you can't beat the laws of physics. So, in order to move in any direction, we require friction. So you can either be moving backwards or forwards, and sometimes you need to get pushed back a little bit to like move forward. And so it's really about learning who the person is and kind of what they need in their life. Um, some people need a kick in the rear end. Some people need to be spoken to firmly. Some people need to be taught to have more grace with themselves. And to me, it's like they're both interrelated. And to me, it's more yin and yang. Like sometimes to be very consistent, as one could say, very structured, it requires some flexibility in like skipping a session so that you don't do the session at 9, 10 o'clock at night to check it off. And therefore you're waking up the next morning, you can't do your morning workout. So then that gets pushed. And then we like compact everything in a short amount of time. And that's not good either. So it's kind of more the ebb and flow of these things and how they interrelate to each other. But to me, like what paramount is like whatever it takes to be consistent. So some of my clients require flexibility to be consistent. Some of my clients require structure to be consistent. And it just depends on the personality. So, Callan, I'm going to ask you a question because you always ask such good questions. So I'm on Instagram here. Um, how does like flexibility or structure show up in your job? And you can mention it or whatever, but like I'm curious to like, I know you're asking a lot of questions about training, but like I find like you're, when people are successful at their jobs, if they would just take like some of that and bring it into training, um, it could really help them out. And so that's like what I do on one-on-one coaching is kind of like really get to know the person. So if like someone's in finance and stuff, I'm like, hey, I'm talking money, dollar cost averaging related to training. And when we're over leveraged, and all these different things to like, if I have a business owner, how to like procure, like I'm trying to make connections with people. And so I'm curious how you do it there. San. I'm currently squishing consecutive 3 days over the weekend. Not ideal, but that's what's flexibility is, right? We make it work with our schedule. When do I decide to skip a session? Yeah. So, okay, this is a beautiful question. So essentially what San is asking, San runs in California. What they're asking is they've missed some sessions. So I'm interpreting it that you're being flexible to shift the sessions, but then you're stuffing them in the day. And I would say you're holding too much to the structure of getting everything done in 7 days, even though you're, so it's like all the time something's present, right? Like both aspects are present. And so what I would say is you're sticking to the structure that it's on the piece of paper or in the app, or on the website of what you have to do. So hell or high water, you're going to get all those sessions done. And I think you need to be a little bit more flexible. If you miss it, just skip it. And that's really hard for people to hear. But I find that when you miss something, it's due to stress. It could be good stress, your birthday, family party, a raise, like a good opportunity at work that's busy, or you can have bad stress, all the opposite things, right? And so when it comes to this point of, like, oh, I have this session, even if it's a key session, just skip it and get back on the next day because you probably didn't get sleep. We can assume a lot of different things, but I've had way more success with people skipping a session if it happens every now and then. Now, if every Wednesday you miss the threshold run on the challenge, eventually I'm going to say, hey, that's the highest priority, is to get that threshold session, because I think of things not in a 7-week block, but kind of in a 21 day and really like 10 to 14. So can we get everything we need to do in 2 weeks? And if we don't, that's when I start getting, okay, we need to be a little bit more structured with this, getting the structure in, but flexibility. And this is why like these two things are confusing for me. It's confusing to articulate, but we're going there. All right, Callan, honestly, oh, I did this thing again. All right, there we go. Honestly, very similar to what you said. People management is super hard because all the different personalities. So as a leader, you have to learn what motivates people. Yeah. So, Callan works like with people and yeah. Yeah. So you have to know people, right? This is a people thing. It's not spreadsheet cells that we're just moving around and changing the formula, right? This is people. These are people's lives that we're adjusting and trying to work with. And then people have all these experience prior to getting to where they're at. All right. And so they have preconceived norms of based on their experience, how they were raised, all these things, right? And so like that might disagree with how I was raised. This might go against the experiences I had. I might have had a complete opposite thing. And so in my coaching, and I think this is really important, is like what works. That's all that matters. It's not how I like to do it. It's not how you like to do it. It's like what works to getting us to fulfill what we're trying to do here. And that's it. Done. If that requires me to like shut up and listen more, I do it for my clients. If that requires me to cut them off and say like, no, that line of thinking, it has not worked for you to date, because I can give you several scenarios or facts that it did not work, that I experienced, I watched. So we have to do something different. If nothing changes, nothing changes. All right. Hey, it's Kristen, baby. Yeah. So yeah, and some people want money is motivating, recognition. You should read Daniel Pink's book, like Drive. Money only gets people so far. Most people want autonomy, mastery, and then there was a third one. But if you can give people some autonomy to master their position, it gives them more meaning and makes a bigger impact. So with my clients, I'm trying to give some autonomy. Again, some of my clients will laugh, but they're always fighting me or battle me or questioning what I'm doing, and I have to explain and educate. When I'm getting past explaining and educating, then we get more into like a cooperative, you know, um, scenario where we're really working together. So, hey, Jenny from the A, like A town, like Atlanta, or like, I'm curious what the A is. All right. Listening is key sometimes, Callan. So people tell you what they want one thing, but they really want something else. That one. I'm gonna tell you, in my experience, I've coached so many people. Like people ask for something, they ask for something, they ask for something, and usually they're asking for something because they're used to it, even though they didn't like it. So I would recruit high school kids, and they would tell me how much they didn't like the training they were coming from, and they didn't like what their coach were doing for them. And then when they got to me, and I'm trying to teach them something new, that friction, that freak out zone would happen, and they didn't understand it. And I would explain and educate, have the upperclassmen connect with them and listen to them, and all these things. And then eventually, I'm like, okay, what they're asking for, they're like, then they start asking for the thing that they said they disliked, and I remembered it. And then they get to a place where like it's just a comfort thing. Like someone made this joke. It's like if everyone in a room threw up their problems in the air and they could like let go of them, but they had to catch something, they would catch their own problems because you kind of know how to deal with them. So yeah, I think that it's so fucking ironic and hilarious. Like I seen it all the time, particularly in college. And then I would give them the workout that they wanted, and they're like, that sucked. I'm like, yeah, it sucked, but this is what you wanted. It's hilarious. So, what's up, Josh? Hello, Jennifer. Um, oh yeah, from the A, Atlanta, where Mr. Matt Wilpies is from. So, I've actually never been in Atlanta, but I've been in Georgia. I did like I came up from Florida on my motorcycle and I slept and camped in Okefenokee Swamp, which I have a wild story with that. I saw alligators. I got yelled at by a bobcat at 2 a.m. I had someone flash a light on me in my campsite, like at night. The campground got locked down. You couldn't leave it. And then when I was leaving, I saw a bear ran in front of me in the road. Pretty crazy. Um, but then I kind of drove up through like to Augusta ish and then to Asheville. And there was like way more like logging roads and different stuff than I anticipated. So anyway, all right. I'm also on YouTube and someone's on YouTube, but they're not. I wonder who's on YouTube watching. If you're on YouTube, make a comment so I can see who's working. So I'm still learning all this tech. I got to do a presentation for Google, so I'm trying to figure it out. Hello, motorcycle. How did I not know this? Yeah. You saw a bear and a snake in one shot? Yeah, I took a 2-week trip, kind of like a vision quest. I drove from where I live, north of New York City, an hour and a half, and I drove all the way down to Tampa for one of my best friend and college roommate and teammates' weddings. And then I drove back up, and it was about 14 days. It was pretty cool. And I loved it. But yeah, some interesting scenarios. But you're jumping on now. But I was talking about structure versus flexibility, and Jennifer is one of my long-term athletes, and we've dealt with this conversation a lot. Someone sometimes craving structure, but having to learn how to be a little bit more flexible, and then she really enjoys traveling, and so making sure we're flexible when those trips happen so she can get some really enjoy the experience and get what she wants out of it. So but when we know about these like dates and stuff ahead of time, it makes it way better. So anyway, I'm here to answer any questions. I talked about structure versus flexibility. If you didn't capture it, you can jump on Instagram later tomorrow to watch the whole reel. But yeah, Monday Musings, where I get to rant about things I'm thinking about or coming across in a non-formal, informal way while I get to drink a glass of wine. Jennifer, how was your trip? Speaking of trips, I don't get to talk to you this week. Yeah. Yeah. So anyone can jump on and ask questions. I'm going to be on for another 5 minutes. So I'll go to 8:40 Eastern Standard Time. I'll hang out with you all. And then it's time to hit some melatonin, drink some water, and hit the sack for my 6 a.m. run with my friend before it snows. Well, yeah, you went for flew to Europe for basically half a day. It's always too short. Yeah, eventually I'm gonna get Instagram. I'd like to stream to Instagram, and then I can look in one place. But yeah, drinking an unoaked Chardonnay from Napa Valley. Hello, Sean. We've been talking about structure versus flexibility. How about Philip Rivers? Someone said, "Who's next?" Fitzpatrick, whatever his name is. All right, Jen. Good night. Yeah. Get to bed. Coach's orders. Yeah, I saw that. Like my news is I don't watch TV and I just see whatever comes across Instagram. But Philip Rivers, coming back. Maybe he has so many kids that he needs. He went through his money, but also too is sometimes having a veteran coach to like take on or a veteran athlete to like be a little bit smoother and maybe they're not on top of their game. Bring back Eli. Eli. Oh man, the only times I liked him was when he won a Super Bowl. Other than that is he was really I didn't love him. All right, Josh, speaking of melatonin, I've been doing a lot of research on optimizing sleep and when to stop eating at night and supplements to take as an endurance athlete in high volume, but absorbing it well. Okay. Yeah, Josh trains for marathons and triathlon and doing all the fun stuff. And you know, if you don't know Josh, you should follow him. Listening to his story was really cool on Stupid Questions podcast, I think it was. I've met Josh a few times, and hearing about his story was really inspiring to see his transformation. But okay, so melatonin originally was like some people were super skeptical about it, particularly for males with fertility. There was a study done with like hamsters or gerbils, and it basically like their fertility went like way down taking melatonin. But I don't know if it was Andrew Huberman, Peter Attia, or Tim Ferriss. I think it was Tim Ferriss had someone on or Peter Attia, and they really nerded out about this. And basically, it was like the reason why it decreased fertility in hamsters or gerbils is because they're nocturnal and then they like reproduce so often. So it was like really strange for them. But in humans, it was like neuroprotective. So like creatine and all these things to like help with neurodegenerative stuff. And I remember taking a class on like advanced topics in neurobiology and like dealing with glial cells. Like there's so much more happening than just neurons. So if you can blast it with stuff. So melatonin, creatine, these are things that are helpful. Creatine not at night, not to sleep, but melatonin is good. For me, so just think of melatonin as like it'll take you from like brain on to like but not like you don't feel it. It just like happens slowly. I take 10 milligrams or whatever the dosage is. I take 10. They have 5. I have some wild, very vivid dreams. I'm a dreamer. So sometimes, and I don't sleep all the way through the night. I've slept from when I put my head to the pillow to when I wake up, the maybe 4 times in my entire life that I can recall or remember that I did not wake up. So I wake up, basically I'm on a REM cycle, and I roll over and I fall back asleep. I like to move around. So, you know, the biggest thing to do with sleep, it like starts in the morning. So, and I don't do this, but this is what they say. And I've met with like sleep researchers and stuff when when the athletes were getting ready to compete in Korea, which is like multiple time zones for the 2018 Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang. And we had a sleep person come in and like talk to us about all this stuff. And then when I was coaching college, we had a researcher from Arizona State, one of the top ones, and they're both like, you need to be on circadian rhythm as much as possible. So you're better off waking up at the same time every day than getting 8 hours of sleep consistently. Now you want 8 hours of sleep because less than 8 hours of sleep basically increases the rate of injury. So it's like, in track coaching, like if someone had an issue on the like pole vault, like in the air, like we would go backwards and it was like generally at takeoff and then it was like in the approach. So like you kind of always reverse engineer backwards to like here's the symptom we're experiencing, but the problem is somewhere else. So first think about like waking up consistently. Then you have to think about getting sunlight in your eyes. So like being outside and walking. So windows, not being in front of your window that has UV protection. It's like sunglasses, or in your car, same thing. So like just getting some sunlight, it just like trips us into, being able ready to sleep. And then it's like, when are you doing work? If you're doing a ton of work and thinking late at night, you're going to need a little downtime. So then it gets into like creating a rhythm for your brain. It's almost like Pavlov's dog. Like, how can you get ready for the rhythm of going to sleep? So it's like taking off highlights and putting on like lamps in here, because lights up here, sun, our brain starts thinking that. So the brightness of the light. So like I can change, I can make this light, cold, or I can make this light, very warm. Right. And so having some warmer lighting, in your bedroom and stuff like that. So that's like lower watts, or I forget what it is. Right. Um, and then it's like getting into routine. So for me, I watch the same series of movies. I watch Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Hobbit, and some even like action ones, but I've watched them so many times. It just conditions, I put them on and it conditioned me to fall asleep. So I don't listen to anything new. If I watch something new, my brain's like stimulated and I cannot fall asleep. So it's like trying to have ways to shut off the brain. As far as supplements go, back to supplements, magnesium. So magnesium citrate can have like a laxative effect and different stuff. And it's like really the kind of cheap, crappy and everything things. Magnesium glycinate or magnesium oxalate or magnesium lactate, they tend to dissolve a little bit better, but that's still questionable if it passes the blood-brain barrier. So do a little bit more research on that. I'm not a nutritionist in that sense, but generally like high quality of magnesium and melatonin. There's a strong, I'm not, so don't take medical advice from me. All right. I'm not a doctor. All right. Lost. Like, don't sue me here. But like a Ashwanga root, valerian root, like there's all these things that like you can take. But I find the more stuff you need to take, you need to reverse engineer what your day is like and how stressed you are and all those things, and start figuring out how to create better boundaries and to start your day a little bit better. Okay. And then it's like, what are you eating and different stuff like this. So eating later, earlier, like when it's still light out is good. Trying not to eat at 8 o'clock at night. My wife is a nurse. So like when she works, she doesn't get home till 8:30. So that's challenging. And I can notice on my midsection, like it's not great. Um, being, less sugar, all those things. All right. So Jenny from the A, I've done the New York City half, thinking about a marathon. Which is the biggest myth you'd love to bust, or advice for a first time marathoner? All right. Controversial. You do not need to run over 20 miles. That's the biggest one. Everyone feels like they need to do that. They feel like they need to like get 20 in for confidence, and it forces people to be really banged up. It doesn't force them. People end up being really banged up because then they don't back off training from there. And so their body can't absorb it. So like less is more. Less is more. You can't fake a marathon. So you can't do like 10 miles long runs and think you're going to like get through it with an enjoyable experience. But like you do not have, the biggest myth, and that's a beautiful question, is that you have to run more than 20 miles. Even my elite, like done it a bunch of I shouldn't say elite, but my athletes who've run a lot of marathons and are qualifying for Boston stuff, one only one or two of them have run 22. I'm very stern on that because you have to recover from that. Josh, what is your take on nighttime routines? So I think I explained it a little bit, my routine, but essentially my routine is like I've always been like I do so much during the day, like my brain is running, I'm active, I have moments for myself, but by time I'm getting to this time, my brain is like starting to shut down and I'm getting tired. So it's like, plus my bedroom is like for sleep. It's not where I do work. I don't do work in my bed. I don't like, it is just for sleep. So everything outside. So like when I go into my bedroom, it's only for sleep. All right. I go in and I'm getting ready for sleep. I do take melatonin. I drink some water. Sometimes if my brain's running a little bit, I'll take a little magnesium. But it's like, and then I go watch the movies. I put like, if I'm going to bed, my wife, when she first met me, she's like, Harry Potter, what? I've never read the books, but I love the movies. But it's like, it's just classical conditioning. I did the same thing when I was a professional triathlete. I didn't want to spend all this money and do all this training and get to a race and then like the hotel's loud or the Airbnb the host I was staying with was loud. So I trained myself to sleep with earbuds in and listen to classical music. But I found even classical music can change, Pandora or something. So it's like listen to the same thing. So I did the same thing when I was like doing my master's. Like I conditioned myself, like I listened to Odessa, like Summer Never Ends. And now it's like Mos Def or 50 Cent. Um, Mos Def Mathematics album, or no, Black on Both Sides, or 50 Cent Get Rich or Die Trying. And it's just like I get into the zone because my brain is like, okay, I'm conditioned to do that. So I would just try to find ways to condition yourself. So especially when you travel and stuff, like I travel, I have the movies downloaded on my computer, and I just, if I can't fall asleep, I pop it up. All right. What's up, RC Dorian? Try run. Sean Shake, love this. Thank you. Okay, Sam runs. Back to structure. Yeah. All right. Hey, Karina. No, Karina, I'm not letting you be on my live video jointly. Someone else did that. I don't know what is prompting that. All right. I ran my first marathon last year and I did not run more than 20. It was great. Yeah. I really think that's one of the bigger myths. There's many of them. Maybe I should do a talk on like slaying that, because I've seen people, I've gotten quite a few people who've done quite a few marathons, and I've got them to drop quite a bit of time and feel healthier through the process, shave off time. And then on the back end, the recovery, they're like, this is so much better. All right. Jenny from the sea. Thank you. Yeah. So Jenny from the sea, or from the sea, from the THEAMC, Jenny from the A. What marathon are you thinking about, or what have you signed up for? Especially my West Coast people. Grab a glass of wine. Someone join me. Oh, you're doing New York City Marathon. Okay, yeah. So New York City Marathon, it's like the mean streets of New York. Like it is challenging. There's quite a bit of elevation, but they're not these massive hills. It just comes at towards the end. So don't expect to run faster at the end, but you need to be ready to put in more effort. So don't try to bank time early in the race. Really be strict on your first 10K being smooth, and it's just a warm up, and then work your way into the race. And it really, for me, and all my clients over the years, it's like you need to get to like up and over the Queensboro Bridge. Like that's where the race really starts. When you get into coming into Manhattan, and then because it's kind of like gradual up to the Bronx, and then it's kind of like up and down a little bit on Fifth Ave, and like gradual, and then you get into the park. There's nothing flat in the park. So basically, from mile 22, it's like not there's no real flat. So yeah, but good luck with it. Yeah, absolutely. But the biggest thing with the marathon training is like you're really walking a tightrope. So like I definitely advise like finding a coach if it's in your budget. Cheaper's not better. It's good, better, or good, cheap, and fast. Like good and fast is not it to be good, so you can run fast. It's not cheap. Cheap and good, it's not going to happen fast. And then cheap and fast, it's not going to be good. All right, San runs in CA. See you later. All right, everyone. I think I'm going to wrap it up. Yeah, we have a lot of good coaches. I'm currently full, but I might open up around then. Appreciate you, Karina. Karina was one of my clients at New York City. She proved me wrong. I was like, Karina, I don't know based on running Berlin 6 weeks sooner if we're going to do better. And she PR'd. And then she just PR'd in Chicago, even though we weren't working together. She kicked butt. So I was super proud of her. All right, everyone. Good night. Go get a glass of wine. Enjoy it on me. And Josh, drinking before bed is not helpful in the long term. So never said I was a role model. All right. See you all later. Every Monday Musings, soapbox it, but also answer questions. Sean's Sean, Sh- Sean, I feel like you've been on here a couple times, and don't be shy to ask questions. This is no big deal. We'll DM you a question for next week. You don't have to. You can ask it here. I'm trying to make it a little bit more organic. Good night, Karina. Happy holidays. Later, Callan. Happy holidays. Hope everyone has safe travels. Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Merry Christmas, whatever you celebrate. Appreciate you all, one of you on YouTube. Um, again, all this stuff is more for me. I like to get my ideas out there and to think through things and work on my talking and everything. And if you guys get something out of this, fantastic. All right, everyone. Nighty night. Happy holidays. See you later. Next week will be Monday Musings. I have no clue what we're going to talk about. But Sean, if you want to come with questions next time,